You probably heard the saying that the person who speaks the least is the one that's actually in control in the situation. And for most people, that's actually not true. You see, if you've read the title of this video, it's gonna seem like I'm contradicting myself. I would hope you would have read the title of this video at least. But this is actually because most people don't know how to really and actually implement this psychological principle into their speech in the right way. So, by not understanding this and just using the dark confidence or trying to be mysterious like these guys on YouTube say and stuff like that, you're not actually implementing this in the right way, and it's costing you connections, authority, and if you're an entrepreneur or content creator, it's costing you money. In this video, I'm going to break down how speaking less can and will help you get more respect and be taken more seriously when you speak. And I'm going to give you practical action steps that you can take to implement this into your speech the right way, so that you build more respect and more rapport with the people that you speak to than you otherwise would have. Now, in order to understand how to implement this in the right way into your speech, you need to understand first the actual psychological principle behind why this even works in the first place. And I actually learned this way back when I was a kid. I was about 9-10 years old, and I loved playing Minecraft every single day at that time. And I remember I had this world in Minecraft where I decided that I needed more diamonds. It's the most valuable resource in the game. And I found that there was this glitch that you could use to give you infinite diamonds. And I remember I felt like my mind was blown. I was like, there's no way this works. I tried it, and I did it again and again and again until I had hundreds of thousands of diamonds. And then after that, I didn't want to play the game anymore. After playing it every single day for weeks, I didn't want to play it anymore. And the reason why is because of this psychological principle called the scarcity principle, where people will value things that they have less of. The more scarce it is, the more people will respect it and the more people will value it. You see, this is what applies to speech as well. If you speak all the time and yap and yap and yap and talk forever, people won't value your speech as much. But when you ration it out and only speak when it makes sense to, then your speech has a lot more value. So in that case, does that just mean that you should just speak less and be a lot more quiet? Not exactly. Because a lot of people implement this in the wrong way. So there's two types of quiet. There's the quiet person who was like me when I was younger, who essentially is quiet not because they're being deliberate about it, but quiet because of anxiety, quiet because they're trying to be nice. So I remember I used to be in group conversations and I would be pretty quiet sometimes, especially even if it was with my friends. And I'll be patiently waiting for my turn to speak. And someone says something, another person says something, then there's a gap in the conversation. I open my mouth to speak, then someone says something again. And I felt like I was in the background and it was so frustrating. And I had things that I wanted to say, but I was afraid of ruffling feathers. I was afraid of interrupting or butting in, so I never said anything. That's not the kind of quiet that you want to be. That's the quiet that doesn't actually have any power. The quiet that does have power is the person who's speaking because they only feel what they're speaking actually has value to add to the conversation. So, for example, if they're in a group conversation, the other person that's quiet, sitting back, not really saying too much, but they're paying attention, they're listening, and then they open their mouth to speak. Everyone turns to hear what they're going to say. That's the kind of person or the kind of quiet that you need to emulate in your speech. So what exactly is the difference between those two? How exactly do you make that actually work in your speech so that you can get more respect? So there's two things that you need to implement into your speech to be able to leverage your quietness effectively. So the first thing is going to be value-based speech, and the second thing is strategic silence. So what do those even mean in the first place? So value-based speech is focusing on quality, not quantity when you're speaking. So there's multiple ways to do this, but the first thing is to understand what to even cut. Because sometimes it does actually call for you to speak more. There's going to be situations where you need to speak more. Otherwise, all the videos on my channel will be 30 seconds long and I would just talk and say 3 words and call it a day. You see, you need to understand why exactly you're speaking more so that you can understand what you actually need to cut. So for example, when I was younger, I used to speak more out of anxiety. So I would speak more because I was afraid that the people that I was speaking to weren't actually paying attention to what it was that I was saying. And I would repeat points and I would repeat points again and I would repeat this. And it would show in my speech. People can sense that anxiety. People can sense the fact that you're just repeating yourself because you think that they didn't hear what you were saying. So when you do that, it makes you appear a lot weaker. Another reason why I would speak more was to speak more out of trying my best to have more legitimacy behind what it was that I was saying. I thought that if I added more and more sentences, then it would be more valuable. But it ended up making it more bloated in the process. So you need to look deep inside. This might take a little bit of reflection. Maybe you might need to journal or something like that. But you need to understand, why are you speaking more? So that it makes it so that it's easier to understand what exactly you need to cut. It's not just about cutting everything just by 30 to 40%, because you could cut everything by 30 to 40%, you speak less. But if the quality of what it is that you're saying isn't even good in the first place, then it doesn't change very much. The only thing is that you're saving people a little bit of time from having to hear whatever nonsense that you're about to spit anyway. So when you understand what to cut, then you can make real changes to your speech. Now, the next thing is to be fully present when you're not speaking so that it can actually inform what it is that you're going to be saying next. So I learned this the hard way, and this was around the time that I started my first online business. I was trying to start a digital marketing agency, and I remember I really wanted to work with the record labels because I love music, I love singing, all that stuff. So one day, I send a cold email. It was one of the first cold emails I sent, and the guys respond. They're like, yeah, sure, let's hop on a call with you. So I hop on this call. I didn't know anything about sales this time. I didn't know what the hell I was doing by any means. All I knew was that you had to ask questions about their business at the start, and then you pitch, and then you get money. That's all I thought. So I hop on this call with these people. I asked them some questions. Actually, it was one employee. I remember it was one employee. He was this millennial guy, super chill dude. I was wearing this exact same fit. I remember the exact scenario. He was a nice guy. But I remember I'm speaking to this dude. I ask him a few questions about the business, how he goes about digital marketing and everything like that. He gives me information. And the whole time I'm not listening. I'm listening, but I'm not really listening. I'm just focusing on my script, what I'm going to say next, the sales script that I had found online. I'm like, okay, I need to ask him this, how much money they're making. I need to ask him this. And I'm thinking about what it is that I'm going to say in the pitch. I'm not actually present in the conversation. And he can tell. So when I get to the pitch, I don't actually apply anything that he said when I was asking the questions. So it made it so that when I was answering or when I was giving this pitch, it made it as if me asking all of those questions was for nothing. It was like, what was the point? I'm just saying a rehearsed script anyway. So I was just yapping, and I was doing the same mistakes that I was talking about earlier, where I'm speaking more to make it seem as if it's more legitimate, and I'm repeating things because I'm afraid that he's not going to hear what I'm saying. And the whole time, I remember there was this look on his face of just mild, why am I here? He was like, and you can probably guess where things went from there. I never got on another call with them again. I didn't get any money from them, even though I was literally selling them a free trial. This is something that you need to understand. You need to be fully present when you're not speaking, because so many people are not present at all these days. You have phone notifications going off all the time. You have a terrible attention span, and you're constantly thinking about what you're going to do next, what you're going to say next in a situation. If you're fully present and you're focused on what the person is saying, then you can ask deeper questions. You can have more meaningful conversations. You can dig deeper. If you're in sales, you can dig deeper into the pain, why the customer that you're speaking to is feeling what they're feeling. And then you can use that to inform what it is that you're going to say. This will help you to have way more connections and to actually feel as if you're having a real interaction with someone, a deep interaction with someone, instead of just a shallow, one-dimensional conversation with someone where you just have something rehearsed in your head, or you say the exact same thing that you had planned beforehand, or you just think of some random thing and then you forget what the person was even saying. How many times has someone told you their name and then you forget it 30 seconds later? It's because you weren't present. So if you add presence to your conversations, and the ways that you can improve your presence, there's multiple different ways. Stop watching short form content. Use meditation as one thing that you can use. So there's so many different things that you can do to help you to improve your attention span, to improve your focus, to improve your presence. And that will absolutely benefit your conversation and your speaking skills, because you'll actually hear the person that you're speaking to. You'll actively listen to what they're saying. And then that'll improve the quality of your speech so much more. And the next thing that you can do to improve the quality of your speech, not the quantity, is to use frameworks in your speech. So there's lots of different frameworks that you can use, but using frameworks will absolutely make it so that your speech is a lot more clear and concise. So this is because instead of just rambling, you have a bit of a formula that you can use to make it a lot clearer and to make it a lot less concise, or a lot more concise, sorry. So for example, you could use a framework like PREP, P-R-E-P, point, reason, example, points. So you start with a point, you explain what your point is, your main point, you give a reason for it, then you give an example, and then after that, you give a point to, or you finalize the point and rehearse or reframe what it was that you said. So when you do that, it'll make it so that people want to hear what it is that you're saying, because one, you're respecting your time, and then you're respecting their time. And then two, you're just overall a lot clearer when you speak. And if you're paying attention, I actually used the PREP framework right there. You can go and rewind and see. It wasn't perfect because I was trying my best to think about it on the spot, but you get the idea. Using frameworks in your speech gives you a way to clearly articulate your thoughts, especially if you're put on the spot. You know exactly what frameworks to use. So I'm going to talk more about frameworks in other videos, because otherwise I'll be here for hours, but you get the idea. There's probably some you can search up online too that would help you, but PREP, P-R-E-P, is a very basic one, really easy to use. It's a good one to start, and it will help you to improve the quality of your speech that much more. Now, this is just one of many things to master with communication. So if you're an entrepreneur or content creator looking to uncap your income by mastering your own unique style of speaking that resonates with your ICP or your ideal viewer, then click the top link in the description to apply to work with me personally, and I'll help you out with that. Now, the next big point to implement into your speech is what I call strategic silence. So what exactly is strategic silence? Because most people are afraid of silence when they speak. They avoid it. Why? Because it feels uncomfortable, creates tension. But if you're the kind of person that can control silence and use it to your advantage, you will go such a long way in your communication, because that is a superpower that most people don't have. Because people see silence as awkward, but one thing that I've learned in my entire life of awkward interactions, awkward social interactions, being awkward, or awkward situations in general, they're only awkward if you make it awkward. I've been through so many situations where I've had things where maybe it's someone that I used to speak to romantically and now they're here in the same room as me and it feels weird. I've had times like that and they were awkward, and times like that where it was just funny, or times like that where it was just calm. It's only awkward if you make it awkward in your head. It's about how you frame it, and then you can use it to your advantage. So in those situations, I would make it so it was either funny, or where I'm just like, oh wow, I'm actually over this person, or you get the idea. So how exactly do you use silence as a tool? It has to be deliberate. You have to use silence deliberately. You can't just randomly pause and randomly you get the point? You can't just say random things and pause at random times, or just randomly use silence to make it work. It's not gonna hit the same way as if you used it deliberately. So, what does silence do? Silence can do two things for you. It can either give you time to think, or it can give the audience time to think. So, let's give examples of both of these. So giving you time to think. Say someone asked me a question on the spot, and I have no idea what to say to this. What I used to do when I didn't know this principle was just yap. Say something stupid, pretend to know what it was that they asked, and just, I kind of and just fumble my way through the answer. But if you use silence there, if you pause, say pausing for 1, 2, 3 seconds. Even if it's a short pause, it still gives you so much more time to think than just jumping straight into the answer, and you have a much clearer answer. You can think about the actual content, about what you're going to say. You're going to think about how you say it so you can implement a framework. But like, okay, which framework do I want to use here? Or you can say, or you can think, I don't actually know the answer. And you can just say, I don't actually know the answer. So pausing and using that silence to think actually gives you a lot more leeway. And then the other side of it, giving the audience time to think, is another huge way to make your points hit a lot more and to be a lot more convincing and impactful in your speech. So say I made a really big point. Say I was, let's say I was coaching someone on fitness, and I was like, I had just given some super long rant, and I was like, and that is why you should not be on this diet. And then I paused. It would give the person time to really let it sink in, compared to if I said, that's why you should not be on this diet. Anyway, next thing that we need to focus on is this. And if you do this, now, which one do you think is more convincing? The first version or the second version? It'll be the first version because they actually have time to think about it. They have time to think about how they can apply it into their own lives. Or even just go like, that's really interesting. Because it gives more power behind your phrase. Even if they don't think about it, it just sounds powerful. Just think about it. Did that sound cooler? It sounds a little silly for me to say that, but you get the idea. So another thing is that when you use silence, and say, for example, someone is telling a story to you or they're giving their opinion on something, silence actually helps people to open up much more than they otherwise would have. Why? Because of what we talked about earlier. How silence is awkward for people. Not for you, because you watched this video. But for other people, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, it's weird. So, if they ask you, if you ask someone a question, for example, and they give you their opinion on whatever it was that they were asked about, and then they finish their point, and then you just go like, they're not going to like that silence, and they're going to open up more, and they're going to tell you more and give you more details, more things to go off of. And if you're present and you're focusing and paying attention, then you can use that information to ask an even deeper question. This is actually a tactic that's used in sales a lot. Instead of just jumping on to the next question that you're going to ask them, they say something, you go like, Or you can mirror back what it was that they said. So they go like, yeah, so that's why we don't use this anymore. We don't use that anymore. And then they just go into talking more and more and more because people like talking about themselves. So if you use silence in a time where you want someone to open up more, to say more, or if you felt like the answer that they gave you wasn't deep enough, it'll help you so much more. You just need to be comfortable in that silence. Now, another way that you can use silence is to get rid of filler words. I'm going to be quick on this point because it's pretty simple. Instead of just saying or ah, it's normal to get an or an ah every once in a while. I'm sure I've said it once or twice in this video. It's completely fine. But instead of saying that, you can pause, and it makes your phrasing and your sentences so much clearer than if you had it littered with instead, if you just pause, it'll make it a lot clearer. So the last point about strategic silence is that it actually builds suspense. So, for example, when you're speaking and you want a point to really hit, you pause right before the big point. So, for example, in that case, I actually realized I could have used it there. I would have meant like, so if you're speaking, you want a point to really hit, you pause, and then you make it a lot clearer, and you, I don't know, just keep talking. But you get the idea. So, if you use this in your speech, it's technically speaking less because you're using silence more. But when you master silence and know how to actually use it in a way that's effective, it'll get people to open up more. You'll have deeper conversations. The quality of your speech will be a lot better. And you're not even saying anything. And it's still more effective. That's how powerful this is. You're not saying anything, but your communication is so much more. Because 90% of communication is up here. Most communication is nonverbal. It's not just in what you say, it's how you say it, how you use your words, how much you use your words, how often you use your words. And that is how you can actually have a lot more of an impact. How you can make more of an impact with the people that you speak to, your friends, your family, your clients, your viewers. Whoever it is that you're speaking to will value you so much more when you speak like this. When you focus on the quality of your speech, not the quantity. And when you know how to strategically use silence to your advantage. Anyway, that's all that I have for today. I really hope this was helpful. Make sure to apply this into your speech, and I promise you people will respect you and value your speech a lot more and take you seriously. Now, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Click the top link in the description if you want personalized help with speaking skills as an entrepreneur or content creator. And outside of that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Click here, watch my last video right here. And remember, don't overthink it, because you're probably a lot better at speaking than you think that you are. Have a good one.